Crash 2, the one everybody likes. Crash 1 was a huge success for early PlayStation standards, and so Naughty Dog, through some black magic, managed to put out a successor in one single year, almost to the dot. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. And it's not like this is some lazy piece of shit sequel where they just shed out a few new levels, repackaged it, and called it a day. Crash 2 is a lot more complex than the first game. I talked about it at length in my Crash 1 video, maybe check it out once you're done here. But just to recap, Crash 1 is a very focused game. In that game, Crash has a simple, very consistent and predictable moveset, and the level design is painstakingly crafted around that moveset. The result is an extremely tight game where every move counts and every inch of every level feels like it serves a purpose. It's a very classic and very pure platforming experience, even as one of the most prominent pioneers of 3D platforming. As much as I love Crash 1 and will defend the merits of this simpler approach to design, I never thought that the series should have kept that formula going forward. If anything, Crash 2, to me, is the game that gave Crash Bandicoot its identity. Crash 2 starts exactly where the first game ended. Right as Cortex, our evil scientist villain, falls from his blimp after being defeated by Crash. Time skip. We're introduced to Cortex's new assistant, Engine. He has a rocket on his head. I found him really creepy as a kid. We learn of their plan to use the crystal that Cortex found after falling into a cave to power some evil weapon in this space station that they built.
Crystals. Of course.
For that to work, they need 25 other crystals, and Cortex plans to use Crash to gather them. Crash is sleeping in the woods, and his sister, Coco, another new character introduced in this game, asks for him to go get her batteries for her laptop. This is when we first take control of him. This is a short tutorial meant to give us a little controlled environment in which to get used to Crash's moveset, kinda like the courtyard in Mario 64. If you skip the intro cutscene, you don't even get to play this part. Crash eventually gets warped out of this area, and this is when the game actually begins. Cortex shows up as a giant hologram of his giant head in front of Crash, and explains Crash is supposed to use the portals in the warp room he's in to access different locations and collect the extremely well hidden crystals inside each level. Crash is a retard. That's his entire personality basically, and that's what makes him endearing. It's hard to tell if Crash even understands what Cortex is telling him, but the fact of the matter is, there's nothing else to do here besides enter the levels and get the crystals, so that's what we'll do. Unlike the first game, which featured a linear world map, Crash 2 lets us choose in which order to tackle levels as they become available. Each warp room features 5 levels, and getting the crystals from all of them unlocks the next warp room. Level 1 is Turtle Woods. Thematically, it could easily pass as a Crash 1 level. It takes place in a tropical jungle. The first enemies we see are these blue armadillo-looking guys. They pose basically no threat whatsoever. Crash has 2 basic attacks, jumping on enemies and spinning. Either way we choose to handle them, they go down in a single hit. And as far as movement patterns go, they don't really do anything besides walk back and forward. Simply ignoring them also works. That's the basics of dealing with enemies in Crash Bandicoot. Where Crash 2 differs from the first game is in the introduction of a new move. Pressing R1, or circle if you're a degenerate, will make Crash perform a slide. Jumping at the end of the slide will make Crash go further. This move is great. It's really fun to use. It also works as an attack. Not too far into the level is the first instance of a secret area. There's one more new move introduced in this game. Pressing R1, or circle if you're a degenerate, while in the air, will make Crash perform a body slam. This can be used to kill certain enemies, break certain boxes, or in this case, break through this ancient manhole, which takes us into a small underground area that contains a few boxes. If you're new to Crash Bandicoot, something you need to learn is that boxes are really important for reasons we'll see in a bit. For now, suffice to say, breaking boxes equals good, not breaking boxes equals bad. Here in this area we also see our first nitro boxes. These are also new. They explode immediately on contact. A few of the boxes here also require a slide jump to reach. So, we've been playing the game for like a minute at this point, and it's already explained like 90% of its mechanics. No tutorial, no controller splash screen. If you don't know about the slide and the body slam, no worries, just play through the level normally. It's perfectly beatable with just the base moveset imported from the first game. You're supposed to be quick about using these flamingo things to reach higher platforms that hold a few boxes. But there's one more mechanic we can use to reach them if we miss a jump. I'm pretty sure this is unintended, but it is in the N. Sane Trilogy remake that came out in 2018. If you perform a slide jump and immediately use a spin, Crash will go noticeably higher and further. This is really fun to use and allows for some crazy shit. At the end of this path, there's also a strange green metal box. It might be hard to notice for now, but this blows up every nitro crate in the stage. And now, back to the main level. And back to another hole in the ground. Bonus levels got revamped in Crash 2. Now they're accessed via special platforms in the main level. And their boxes count for the level total, meaning they're necessary for completion. They can also be retried as many times as necessary. Bonuses often feature the most interesting box placements in the game. And back up we go again. We run past some mud puddles that slow Crash down but don't really serve much of a purpose. These turtle enemies that can't be spun and will bounce Crash up if jumped on. We've been collecting these masks throughout the level. This is Aku Aku, and he'll protect us if we get hit. Getting free will make Crash invincible for a bit. Crash 1 did something really cool with this mechanic in the first level, but here it's not as interesting. The main gimmick of this level are the rat pits. Basically we get stuck in this hole in the ground and have to kill these rats until a mushroom appears that we can bounce on to get out. Yeah, I don't get it either. You can get out of these by performing the glitchy slide spin jump. And past that, if you have a keen eye, you might just spot this level's crystal. Don't worry, I didn't find it right away either. If you look close enough, you might get this little glimpse of a giant floating purple crystal in the middle of the way. If we don't get it, we can't advance, so keep searching if you can't find it. And just after that is the end of the level. And awaiting us inside this ruin is our first gem. Like in Crash Bandicoot 1, we get these by breaking every box in the level, and they're required for unlocking the best ending. As Cortex' giant floating head tries to bullshit his way into Crash's very complex mind, Coco briefly intercepts the signal. Guess she must have made new batteries out of sticks and mud or something. The signal cuts before she can say anything and we're free to choose the next level. We could go to a new level, but as the crystal and gem we just got slide into these slots next to the name of the level we just beat, you might notice there's still an empty slot. I know your autism won't let you continue without first grabbing all the shinies, so I'll make a concession. We'll go back in. I'm such a good host. You should like and comment and subscribe to show how much you appreciate it. In Crash 1, colored gems are just like the regular ones. You got them by beating specific levels while collecting every crate and not dying. They were usually rewards for more difficult levels and opened up hidden paths in other levels. Crash 2 makes them a lot more interesting. Every level has a clear gem we get from breaking every box. Some levels feature 2 gems, with the second being hidden in the level itself. In level 1 you get the blue gem by not breaking a single box. Well, that's fucking stupid, I hear you say. Well, not really. If you pay attention, you'll notice the box counter at the end of the level shows however many boxes you broke out of 0. Normally, this would be the total number of boxes in the level. So, if you use your brain, you might think not to break any boxes, and that's it. Is it a bit of a stretch? Yeah, I guess. But I think it's kinda cool, honestly. Then there's the remake and its hint system that treats the player like a retard. Try not breaking the boxes. Anyway, we didn't get this cutscene last time because that was our first crystal, but getting a gem after that will trigger a scene in which Cortex's ex, Embryo, tells Crash Cortex is still a prick and that he should collect gems instead so that Brio can stop him. I mean, that's kinda cool. Crash being in the middle of this tug of war between Cortex and his former assistant, all the while he has no clue what's even going on in the first place. It's a nice premise for what it is. Level 2, Snow Go, is probably this game's most iconic. It was chosen to represent Crash 2 in the N. Sane Trilogy's title screen, and I can see why. It's a snow level, it looks pretty. It really looks like a frozen version of Jungle Rollers from the first game. This level does something unthinkable. It makes ice physics sort of fun, and it owes that to a single mechanic. Again, it's the slide. The slide really is what defines Crash 2. Ice physics suck dirty ass because they take control away from the player. There's one area we'll get to a lot later where they really are infuriating. But the thing about the slide is that it allows Crash to change the direction of his momentum instantly. The ice also greatly increases the slide's speed, and that allows for Crash to absolutely fly across parts of the stage. Side-scrolling levels in Crash 1 were just that, side-scrollers. There was a very clear divide between more traditional side-scrolling levels and the more innovative tunnel-like levels. Snow Go is the first level in the series to really graft those two styles together. At the end of this first area, Crash jumps on a platform that takes him to an ice skate that feels almost like an entirely different level. It's a more traditional side-scrolling platforming section. It's easy to compare it to levels such as Native Fortress and Slippery Climb in Crash 1, and that comparison makes it obvious that Crash 2 sort of deals away with the over-reliance on cycle-based obstacles that the first game had. Not to say that there aren't any, but they're definitely not as prevalent. There's a red gem floating in this part of the level just out of reach. For now, there's nothing we can do about that one. At the end of the cave area, there is a hole we're supposed to fall down as hinted by this very convenient ancient direction sign. Better than expecting the player to just jump down a hole unprompted, I guess. The final part of the level goes back to 3D gameplay. Careful not to miss the crystal. Level 3, Hang 8, is a river level, reminiscent of Up the Creek and Upstream from the last game. It drops the relaxing nature sounds and music for what I can only describe as some surfer tropical music sounding thing. I'm not a musician if you can't tell. It's a complete tonal shift, and if I'm honest, I prefer the river levels from Crash 1. But that is not to say I don't like these. They just go for a completely different approach. Most of the platforming revolves around these round platforms that will emerge and submerge in cycles. What's cool is that the slide spin jump can skip quite a few of these cycles. Halfway across the level, Crash jumps onto a jet board, and this turns into a vehicle level. It's fine. I'm not gonna complain too much about it. It's fast and controls well enough. Crash 3 conditioned me to hate vehicle levels by default, but this is okay. It helps that only parts of the level are like this, and most of it is still normal platforming. A timer shows up a little before the first jet board section, and if we finish the level before it gets to 0, we get an extra clear gem on top of the one from breaking all the boxes. Unfortunately, we can't really get both in one go because entering the bonus stage kills the timer, but there's something we can do to circumvent that. If we get to the end of the level without breaking checkpoint boxes and beat the timer, we can get the gem and the crystal, turn around, purposefully drown Crash in the river, and restart from the beginning of the level. Then, with the help of the blue gem from level 1, we can break every crate and get the level's box gem. All 3 collectibles from this level in one go. I call it a cock and balls. And to me, the cock and balls is the coolest thing you can get in this game. The ultimate proof of skill in Crash 2. The pits follows the same theme as the first level. It also features a split path that contains boxes on both sides. You can even miss the crystal here actually, not even joking this time, if you take the wrong path and don't go back. Backtracking is one of the most annoying things in this game. Crash 1 only really required one instance of backtracking for the gem and Cortex power, and that was the worst level in the game. The first level does encounters really nothing even slightly threatening in that section. Crash 2 does it a lot more than I would have liked. Here it's not all that bad, but it'll get worse. And finally, Crash Dash is a snowy version of the boulder chase levels from Crash 1. You run away from a boulder towards the camera. There are some new obstacles here, but these are still fairly simple levels. That makes 5 crystals. We'll have to beat a boss on our way to the next warp room, and this time it'll be Ripper Roo, making a return from the first game. In the secret ending for Crash Bandicoot, we learn Ripper Roo became some sort of intellectual and got a PhD, and that's canon apparently. This fight is not very good if I'm honest. Boss fights weren't really amazing in the first game either, and I'd say the level of quality remains about the same. This one in particular is very uninteresting. He'll pogo on his cane in a predetermined pattern, turning tiles around the arena into TNT and nitros. Naturally, these will kill Crash once they explode. The problem is, if you know where to stand, there's really nothing to do besides waiting for him to stop and let us hit him. I like to bounce on his head. He'll jump straight up afterwards and take Crash with him for a ride. It's kind of fun. Each warp room has a different theme based on a level from the game, but their appearances don't really reflect much on the actual levels. Warp Room 2 is ice themed. At least the first level, Snow Abyss, follows that aesthetic. It utilizes ice physics a little more than Snow Go did, but the two don't really feel all that distinct. It introduces these porcupine enemies that I find to be really annoying. If they see Crash, they'll put out their quills and become invulnerable for a few seconds. You could theoretically just jump over them, but with ice physics and cramped platforms, that's easier said than done. For some reason, there seem to be a fuck ton of boxes missing from this level, and we can't get its gem quite yet. Oh well, moving on. Air Crash is the second river level, and it has a secret. Wow. When we get to the first jetboard part, we can bounce on the boxes that are floating around and make our way to a lone platform. Landing on it will transport us out of the level and into the secret warp room. I thought this place was the coolest shit as a kid. You can see the islands from the first game in the distance here. I kept trying to jump off and reach them as a kid. It's one of my video game memories I keep coming back to. Isn't it awesome when you're a kid and you don't really understand how video games work? And so anything is possible in your mind. The game world feels like it's real. If you could just jump over the barrier, there would be an entire world waiting for you to explore. I'll never forget this feeling. It's basically what I chase in video games to this day. Man, I love this place. It just looks beautiful, mysterious. Getting here for the first time blew my fucking mind. Well, there's not really much to do here besides think about the time when I was still able to enjoy things. We did just unlock an alternative entrance to Snow Go from Warp 1. It takes us to a fairly annoying side-scrolling section with ice physics and nitro crates. And at the end of it, the red gem we saw when we first played through the level but couldn't reach. I'll let you in on a little secret. You can't actually get this gem the first time through. You just have to do a very weird jump. Then you can get a cock and balls in this level. Don't tell anybody. It's our little secret. And with the red gem, we can go back to Snow Biz and get the crates we missed there. We still have to actually play through Air Crash. This level introduces the death route. Remember how in Crash 1 we had to beat a level without dying in order to earn a gem? Well, Crash 2's answer to that is the death route. Sort of. It's not nearly as punishing, but in some levels we have to make it to a certain spot, usually halfway across the level without dying, in order to make a platform appear. Dying after this point doesn't make it go away, so it's really not that bad. These routes usually contain a second gem, and sometimes may also contain boxes needed for the regular box gem. They are usually slightly more difficult than the main path. The box gem for this level is not obtainable right now, so moving on. Well, next is a nice and simple one. Barret. Remember the boar from last game? It's a cute polar bear cub named Polar now. He's even sitting outside the level waiting. You can abuse him for a bunch of extra lives. Polar's levels are actually a lot more fun than the hog levels from Crash 1. He feels a lot more nimble. There are still some shitty hitbox problems though. Pressing R1, or circle if you're a degenerate, will also cause him to dash briefly. Jumping during this animation will trigger a much higher and longer jump. It works sort of like the slide in Crash's base moveset. The level looks great. I love the death animations where Crash gets fucked and Polar just sits there not giving a shit. Crash Crush is the second boulder chase level. At the very end we have one of two instances where anything interesting is done with the body slam attack. I have to use it to break a reinforced box at the very end of the stage while being chased by the boulder, meaning we need to gain enough distance on it so as to not get crushed while the slow ass animation plays. The body slam is really not that interesting of an idea. It's usually just one more button we have to press in order to break a box that's just sitting there in the open. It slows the gameplay down to a crawl. The Yield Deal introduces a new theme, sewer levels. These are kinda cool. The music is great and they look pretty unique. They're a bit claustrophobic and feature splitting paths. This is another level where the crystal is actually missable. What's a little annoying about these levels is the fact that they have these sections where Crash has to hang from grates on the ceiling, like they're monkey bars. These are not terrible like they are in a certain later game, but I can't say I really like them either. The green gem is hidden here behind a fake wall. The room at the end of a path filled with nothing but nitro crates is pretty suspicious, so I guess that's supposed to be the clue. The bosses of the second warp room are the Komodo brothers. They're better than Ripperoo at the very least. All of their attacks are very easy to dodge by simply going to the other side of the room. One of them will spin around and the other will throw swords in a circle. Then, when one of them gets dizzy, you spin at him and he slams into the other. Repeat 3 times. Warp 3 is themed around river levels, but again, that doesn't really mean anything. The only river level here is the first one. plant food. It's not too dissimilar from the other 2 river levels we've been to. It focuses more on the carnivorous plants, as the name suggests, specifically in making it past them while riding the jet board. But if I'm honest, I feel like this level theme is starting to outstay its welcome at this point. It doesn't help that this level has the exact same gimmick as Hang 8, where we have to beat the level before the timer runs out in order to earn a gem. I feel like Crash 2 lacks diversity of level themes when compared to the first game. I don't really like how disjointed the levels feel from one another. You would at least expect that this would allow for levels that are more visually distinct, but really, I'd argue Crash 1 offers more visual diversity than its sequel. I mean, look at the contrast between some of the levels in the first game. Road to Nowhere, Temple Ruins, Sunset Vista, Slippery Climb, Castle Machinery, Native Fortress, Lights Out. See how distinct and visually striking they all look? Most Crash 2 levels just look kind of drab in comparison. Out of the 10 levels from the first 2 warp rooms, 7 of them can fit into the categories of jungle, snow, or something in between. And out of the remaining 3, 2 are river levels, which I would argue also sort of fit into the jungle category. And Warp 3 will only introduce a single new level theme. Luckily, I think it's the coolest in the game. We've been going through levels in order so far, but since the game allows us to tackle each set of 5 levels in whatever order we feel like, I'll use this opportunity to follow on that brand with Road to Ruin. The level takes place outside, at night, in a vast ruined ancient city. That's a fucking awesome setting. I feel like this is the most Crash 1-like level in the game, which might explain why I like it so much. At the same time, it brings me to the point that Crash 2 is not really designed with precision platforming in mind. I've talked about this before, but if you haven't seen my Crash 1 video, I'll briefly go through it again. Crash 1's platforming is very deliberately built around Crash's predictable jump distance. In the second game, Crash's jump has too many variables to allow for such concise level design. What it really comes down to is, the slide introduces a second tier of complexity to the game. But outside of the more challenging requirements for 100% completion, Crash 2 still assumes the player will only ever use the basic jump in order to clear gaps. The slide is overall a great addition. It really is a joy to use and makes movement a lot more fluid. But in order to accommodate it, levels now need a lot more empty space to keep players who choose to use it from overshooting every jump. Road to Ruin, and its companion level we'll see in the next warp room, are the only levels in Crash 2 that feature the same type of precision platforming that make up most of the first game, and it really shows what happens when levels don't utilize those huge stretches of empty space after each jump. Crash's new moveset doesn't lend itself well to this type of challenge anymore. You can always control Crash in midair and line him up with each platform, but that really breaks the flow of gameplay. The obvious solution is to simply use basic jumps as you would in the first game, but doesn't that sort of defeat the purpose? In the end, my problem is not really with the slide itself, but rather with the refusal of the level designers to fully commit to it. In my opinion, this moveset would only reach its full potential over 20 years later with the release of Crash 4 in 2019, but that's a conversation for another time. I like that game a lot, by the way. Anyway, Road to Ruin features a death route that leads to a clear gem, but the box gem cannot be collected right now. We'll be back for it in due time. Also, these lizard guys are the first enemies in the game that can only be defeated by a slide. Sewer or Later is, as the name would imply, a sewer level. There's a gem path here that requires the yellow gem from beating the timer in plant food. It contains a clear gem, but no boxes, so we don't even have to complete it. It's the best sewer level just because it doesn't have any monkey bar sections. Also, it's one of the simpler levels to get a cock and balls in. Bear Down is the second polar level. It's fun. Looks a little cooler than the first one too. It's like it takes place during sunset. It's the same idea really. At the very end you might notice a bunch of floating ice platforms on the lake Polar jumps over. Going back and making our way to the central platform will transport us once again to the secret warp room. This was the first secret warp I found as a kid personally. It unlocks a secret entrance to Air Crash, which allows us to get every box and earn the second gem. Unfortunately, this means it's impossible to get a cock and balls in this level, as we need the crystal to unlock Warp Room 3, and we need to unlock Warp Room 3 before we can get the box gem. Bummer. And the final level for this warp room is another chase level. but with a twist. Instead of running away from boring giant boulders, in Unbearable, we run away from giant polar bears. While that by itself is really cool, this turns out to be one of the most infuriating levels in the game for reasons that have nothing to do with the bears. While we run away from the second bear, we'll go over a bridge that will collapse under its weight. I have no clue how anyone was supposed to figure this out, but the game expects us to jump into the hole. This takes us to easily one of the most annoying sections in the game. It has nothing to do with bears. We're in this side-scrolling section trying to dodge bullets shot by these lab assistants wearing short shorts, like they're Rhodesian light infantry or something. The hitboxes on these things are huge and they just keep coming and the whole thing just drags on and on. It's actually really fucking hard, especially when they start mixing in these turtles that can't be jumped on and these armored armadillos that can only be defeated with the body slam. The best way to deal with it is to just tank the final one with Aku Aku masks. And all of this is just for a few boxes. This level doesn't even have a second gem. So back to the level, the final bear has a surprise. We actually run from it while mounted on Polar. It's a really cool moment. Then we get to the end and what the fuck? Where the fuck did I miss 2 boxes? As it turns out, in the fucking hole with the hunter guys. There are 2 life up boxes that are hidden off screen. Couldn't you save the asshole gotcha box placement for a section that wasn't fucking insufferable in the first place? Fucking shit, man. Anyway, Unbearable has one more secret, jumping over the gap at the very end of the level, after the final bear falls down the hole. And making our way back to Polar, warps us once again to the secret warp room. And this time we unlock an actual new level, instead of an alternate entrance. Totally Bear is another Polar riding level. The gimmick is that it's really dark. There's no crystal here, only a single gem, so the only reason to even come here is to break every box. It's a short level and it requires mastery of the running mechanic in order to beat. Beating it will bring us back out at the Unbearable portal. And we can go fight the next boss now. Tiny Tiger is my favorite boss from this game. The music is great. The fight takes place over a set of 9 platforms over a bottomless pit. Tiny is invulnerable and will chase Crash from platform to platform. Eventually a few of them will start flashing red, signifying they're about to fall. We're supposed to make Tiny try to jump on one of them as it does. As he takes damage, more platforms will flash red and we have to make our way to one of the safe ones. As the fight progresses, we'll get less opportunities to make Tiny fall, and less platforms will be safe after he does. He'll be done after 3 hits, and then we can progress to Warp Room 4. You know that part of the game, the one you never want to deal with? That's Warp 4 for me. It has 1 level that I think is okay and 4 levels that I really don't want to deal with. Hanging Out is a sewer level and just from the title you can already guess what it's going to be about. Great. More like great, am I right? Sorry. It starts out amazing right away by forcing us to wait for the flamethrower guy to allow us to pass, which takes like 5 seconds, and then most of the level is hanging from the ceiling, slowly making our way across gaps. It has a secret area we can access by running towards the camera after dropping down a hole. It's an even worse monkey bar section where these little drone things are going too fast for Crash to simply slip past them, so instead we have to stop dead on our tracks and press R1, or circle if you're a degenerate, to get Crash to pull up his legs and let him pass. At the end of this, there's yet another warp to the secret room. Hanging Out only has a box gem, so let's go check that out. This time we unlock yet another full level, Totally Fly. It's a dark level like Lights Out from Crash 1, in which we need to use temporary light sources to navigate it. Unlike Crash 1, however, this time Aku Aku is not that light source, so we don't get left in the dark after getting hit. Instead we can find these fireflies around the level, and they'll follow Crash around for a bit. The level's pretty cool. You know I'm a sucker for nighttime settings. It would be cooler if it was unique, but there's another one just like it in Warp 5, as we'll see. Also, don't think you can fool me. This is just the assets from Turtle Woods with black fog and the draw distance turned way down, so I won't count it as an entire new setting. Like with Totally Bear, the only point in even entering this level is to get the gem. There's nothing else in here. The challenge is to break these reinforced crates in the dark. We need to perform the body slam for that, and the animation takes so long, the firefly will go away if we do it while it's active, and then we'd fall down a hole and die. We're supposed to feel our way to at least most of them in the dark before grabbing the firefly just before them. The level is pretty much over at that point. Digging It recycles the setting from the Boulder Chase levels. That already makes it a bit uninteresting. It features these plants that spit explosives that can be a little annoying, but the real reason why this level pisses me off are the bees. Once Crash passes a hive, a single bee will start chasing him. They can be spun away, but the problem is that the level has a split path with boxes on both sides. It expects us to backtrack, so that means the bees come from off screen half the time. It's infuriating, and then I find out I missed a fucking crate at the end. It does have yet another secret exit. This one opens up the secret entrance to Road to Ruin, which allows us to collect the box gem for that level. Cold Hard Crash is okay. It's a fun little snow level that's completely harmless. What are you talking about? I didn't collect any gems. This level has no gems, are you crazy? Ruination is the second Ruin level. It gets extra cool points for taking place during a thunderstorm. It has some very asshole-ish nitro crate placements. Also, this green gem path that features Donkey Kong throwing logs. This used to be a lot more annoying before I found out you can just spin these away. Then there are these off-balance pillars that are really awkward to jump onto. You just can't really tell where in the 3D space they are in relation to one another. The gem path takes us back to the level, but past a whole lot of crates, so we might as well jump off and go back to the checkpoint before it after picking up the gem. Both gems are obtainable the first time through. You know what that means? Cock and balls. Good level. Let's get Warp 4 over with already. Behaving is the final level. The name says everything. Bees. This time around they come in huge packs and can't simply be spun away. Crash can dig under the red dirt to hide from them. You might notice this weird set of stacked up nitro crates that doesn't bounce around like all the others. Jumping on them warps us to a secret area. The secret itself is pretty cool. In this area we find the purple gem right away. What's weird about it is it keeps going for no real reason. We can just grab the gem, die, and respawn with it back at the last checkpoint. And we might as well because this area is filled with those hunter guys from Unbearable, and I sure don't want to deal with them again. And that's another cock and balls, ladies and gentlemen. Behaving is not nearly as bad as digging it, but I'm glad Warp 4 is over, and we'll never have to come back here. Ever. Cortex dispatches Engine to take the crystals we've collected so far, and we finally get to fight him. It's a great boss. Kind of weird, but really fun. Reminds me of Vague Viper from Sonic Adventure 1, but not complete shit. What's weird about it is that Crash suddenly and without any explanation gets the ability to shoot out fruit from his forehead. Engine pilots a mech, and that's how we damage it. Basically, he exposes glowing weak spots periodically, and we have to hit these with the fruit. The Insane Trilogy tries to contextualize this by adding a fruit throwing animation, but I choose to believe Crash is canonically conjuring up the fruit with his mind. What's cool about this fight is that, if you feel confident, you can try to slip in a few extra shots while Engine performs his attack animations. Warp 4 was kind of ass overall, but Engine is a highlight of the game to me. Cortex gets pissy that Crash didn't hand the crystals over, but tries to keep up the act. Warp 5 is the one that actually mostly follows its theme, which is space and shit. Overall, I'd say it has 3 good levels and the 2 worst levels in the game that I never want to play. Let's get this out of the way, fuck the level order. Crash 2 very proudly advertised its jetpack levels. It's on the back of the box and we see Crash wearing it in the title cutscene. The levels suck fucking ass. There are 2 in the game and they're both here at the very end. I guess the developers knew they sucked because they chose to hide them from the player for most of the duration of the game. The idea sounds cool and it makes for good promotional material, but holy shit are these levels bad. They control slightly better in the remake where you can choose not to use inverted controls, but playing it on the PS1, especially with a D-pad, it's terrible. The way it works is, the D-pad controls Crash's position on the screen. X makes him go forward and circle makes him go back. And again, the controls are inverted. It's painful. Most of the obstacles are dealt with by using the age-old technique of waiting around. Rocket and Pack Attack are virtually indistinguishable from one another, and we're expected to deal with them one after the other, as they make up 40% of the final warp room. I actually missed one box in Pack Attack. You can imagine how thrilled I was about that. The only good thing I have to say about these levels is that the music is great. Night Flight is the other dark jungle level I mentioned. This one has a Deathroot split path like Behaven, and there's not enough time to backtrack through it with the Firefly to get all the boxes. Thankfully the path only contains a few boxes at the very end, so you can take the gem in the Deathroot, die, go through the other path, turn around, feel around in the dark for the boxes, and return to the main path. Unfortunately I finished the first run without the box gems, so no cock and balls this time. And the 2 last levels we still haven't talked about also feature a theme unique to Warp Room 5. They take place in a space station. Space station levels are really cool. They offer by far the most challenging platforming in the game and really get the closest to really utilizing the full potential of Crash's updated moveset. Enemies are considerably more complex here. It's not like they have advanced AI or anything, but they require some thought to dispatch. Cycles can get quite challenging, and obstacles are placed in ways that complement each other. These are the most well-designed levels in the game. They don't feel like Crash 1 levels, but they feel about as tight and well put together. They don't have a lot of wasted space like so many other levels here. Spaced Out is the final level technically, but we'll talk about it first. It has a gem route, and what's cool about it is that it requires every single colored gem in the game in order to get through. Each section features some of the most creative and challenging platforming in the game. It utilizes the enemies and obstacles from the space levels, each section focusing on one of them. Pistons that can crush Crash or block his path, the robot enemies that cycle between being impossible to spin and impossible to jump on, the shrink and raise that were a huge pain until I realized you can spin to avoid them, the floating platforms that cannot be touched on the sides, and these shield guys that push Crash away. It's a very memorable part of the game, but we're not leaving yet. Yes, we're going for it. The main level is also good, but not too challenging after what we've just been through. Say it with me now. Cock and balls, baby. Piston It Away is a little more annoying. This one also has 2 gems, but instead of a gem path, it features a death route. The problem is, the death route ends in an exit to the warp room, and both paths contain boxes. So what we're expected to do is, make our way to the death route without dying, ignore it, go to the end of the normal path breaking every box, backtrack, remember to spin the shrink ray projectiles. Some people think you must leave this enemy alive in order to bounce on it to go back up this part, but we can just use a slide spin jump or whatever, and then go into the death route. It can be really difficult. Then we still have the death route itself to deal with, but thankfully it's not as hard as the gem route from Spaced Out. Anyway, I'm sorry to disappoint, but I got the crystal here before doing any of this, so we only got the balls this time. Really sorry. And that's every level in the game. At this point, Cortex once again demands that Crash brings him the crystals. Coco finally manages to get through and warns Crash that, surprise, Cortex is still evil. Well, taking the elevator up from Warp 5 will take us to the final boss fight, if you can call it that. It's quite bad. I like the one in the first game a lot, but this one is really a disappointment. Cortex tries to get away with the crystals and we have to stop him. Using the best mechanic in the game. The jetpack sucks balls and controls awful, but that's not the problem this time around. Instead, it's way too fucking easy. Spin Cortex 3 times and we're done. Well, that's it. Goodbye, see you later. Okay. We're missing 2 gems still. Remember Cold Hard Crash? I lied. It does actually have gems. The 2 worst fucking gems in the game, in fact. It's similar to the gems in Piston It Away, in that you need to go through the death route to break every box, but it's a side-scrolling section that consists almost entirely of slippery ice, and it's filled with nitro crates, and there are boxes in the very beginning that only appear after we activate a switch box at the very end, so we have to backtrack through the entire thing, and jumping into the hole at the end will skip the entire middle part of the level, keeping us from getting boxes needed for the box gem. But the level's second gem is floating in that hole, so we have to go down at least once. So the entire section has to be completed at least twice, including one time in which we are forced to backtrack through it afterwards. It sucks. A couple of tips. The body slam kills momentum, so we can use it to stop on the ice floor if necessary. Bringing 2 masks into the death route will allow us to use invincibility to get rid of the nitro crates in the second half of the area, which makes backtracking a lot easier. It helps so much I'd say it's best to just restart the level if you don't make it to the platform with the 2 masks. They knew what they were doing with this one. And now, we are actually done with the game. Going up the elevator from Warp 5 while having every gem will skip the Cortex fight and send us straight into the true ending cutscene. Embryo uses the gems to power a laser that destroys Cortex space station. It explodes and just like that the credits roll. Not the deepest story. Crash 2 to me is thematically the most boring out of the trilogy. But it's also the one game that feels the best to play. Just moving around in Crash 2 is fun. It doesn't really do anything that one of the other games doesn't do better in some way, but it's easily the most consistent out of the three. While the level design is not as tight as in the first game, Crash feels a lot more nimble and fun to control. And while the third game features an even further expanded upon moveset that makes Crash even more fun to play as in my opinion, that game has a huge unrelated problem that I'm sure we'll talk about at length in the future. I hope you're looking forward to about an hour of me bitching about vehicle levels. Overall, I'd say this was the right direction in which to take the franchise. It's pretty clear to me why this seems to be the most popular game out of the three. It really doesn't do anything particularly wrong. It's the safest game by a long shot. It doesn't take many risks. I, for one, think this makes it not as memorable as either its prequel or its sequel, but it's easily the most approachable out of them. I love Crash 1. A lot of people don't like it as much. I have a complicated relationship with Crash 3. Many people love that game a lot. Crash 2 sits in the middle both literally and figuratively. It's not a love it or hate it kind of game. It's a game I think everybody who plays it likes, and there's merit in that. Well, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. I want to make a video every 2 to 3 weeks, so probably more videos soon, I guess. Subscribe and shit. Yeah, that's it. Bye.